Do we love it? I think we love it. What's up, Wagwan? It is saying, it's Lexus C. Welcome back to my channel if you're not new, and if you're new here, welcome to another video. Today is going to be all about moving out. I've been asked loads and loads of questions since I first moved out over a year ago, and since it's been over a year, I think I'm finally in a position to fully answer some of your questions. So firstly, thank you to all of you who sent questions in. Secondly, just because you didn't send in a question doesn't mean you don't get to ask one. So if you watch this video and you still have some unanswered questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below or DM me and ask me, and we'll talk about it. So today's all about moving out. Before we get into that, let's talk about what I'm raving about. I'm raving about Topicals Faded. I've been using Topicals Faded, Faded by Topicals for, should I say, a month now? Maybe just over, and I cannot lie to you, I've been getting compliments on how bright my skin looks and how even it looks. I went to work after having been off and I was getting compliments, and I was thinking, I look raggedy, I'm tired, I'm going through it, but no, everyone just said I was glowing. So shout out to Topicals with Faded, because this made a difference, definitely. Like, I do, just like everyone else, suffer with hyperpigmentation, and I found that it makes a difference. So I'm going to keep using it and I will update you as to how it goes, but that's what I'm raving about. Okay, so I wrote down all the questions on my iPad and then I took screenshots, so I will be looking at my phone to read it, but I've decided to break this Q&A up into 3 categories with regards to having moved out. I won't do them in order, but the 3 categories are reflection, finances, and tips. So that's kind of how the questions have been. I'm going to start with finances because I think most people think about their finances the most when it comes to moving out. So all of the finance related questions, I'll answer all of those and then I'll move on to the next bit. So yeah, let's get into it. So a question that I think was really good is, what were your next steps once you decided to move out? For example, saving, finding a new job, etc. So when I decided to move out, I did have some money in savings. I did not rely on my savings to move out. I wanted to be in the financial position to be able to consistently pay my rent. Oh, and to be clear, I'm renting, I did not buy. So yeah, I didn't get a new job. My wage was healthy enough for me to be able to pay my rent and still have enough money left over. Some people's rent is half of their wage, others is a bit more. But personally, due to research and just trying to have a good balance, you have a better experience renting or buying if your income isn't so close to how much you're paying to live. So that's the main question I'd say on affordability. I didn't do anything to achieve that specifically, but I had been working and I had a number of promotions which put me in good financial stead to be able to fend for myself in that way. Which brings me on to the next question, which was how much preparation was required to move out financially and logistically, etc. So I would say that most of my preparation was logistics as opposed to financially, because like I just mentioned, I was already, thank God, in a good enough financial position to be able to afford to move out. So logistically, I had to decide if that's definitely what I wanted to do. I had to decide on what my future plans were with regards to buying, if I wanted to buy a property in the near future. And I think most people's reason for staying at home is so that they can save, so that they can buy. But I didn't find that I was saving to buy while I was at home. I was saving, but it just wasn't translating to saving to buy. Maybe because I wasn't planning that rigorously as well, but yeah, it would have just taken a much longer time for me to make the step to buy. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that. So yeah, in terms of logistically preparing, I just had to be mentally ready to say that, okay, I'm not just thinking about this step, this is something I'm actually going to do. And then I had to decide whether or not I wanted to do it by myself or do it with somebody else. Is moving out affordable? The short answer is no. We are very much in a cost of living crisis. So for a lot of people, it's not affordable. Did I find it affordable? Yes, because in part I didn't do it by myself, which made it much more affordable. if you have the opportunity to live with somebody else, that can really help to support your dreams and aspirations of moving out of your parents' house. But again, if you want to live by yourself, then the financial burden does completely fall on you, and therefore you would be looking to find somewhere that you can afford as a singleton or a single person. It's not cheap. Which brings us on to how much is average rent in London. I can't speak for all of London, but since I have now moved twice in the past year and a half, I think I have a kind of a good grasp on what rent is. Depending on what kind of place you're looking for, whether it's a house or it's an apartment, I found that looking at houses was cheaper than apartments, because the house is just everything that comes with the house. There really aren't any amenities to a home for the most part, depending on what kinds of homes you're looking at. But if you're looking at just a house to rent, for the most part, it's just a house and maybe a garden or a balcony, but usually a garden. For apartments, the price range can differ because you could be having some amenities in some places and none in others, and vice versa. So the average that I have seen for a 1-bed or a 2-bed to rent in London, you are looking at a range from about 1,700 to about 2,800 if you're looking 1 to 2 bed in London. It depends where in London, but across London for the most part that you're looking at that range. You can find places that are cheaper, but that then depends on whether or not you want a new build or if you're okay with an older property, what the unit looks like, square foot. Like, all of these are things that would be contributing factors to just how much it's going to cost. But I would say that's the range you're looking at. You're looking at about 1.7 to about 2.8. If you're looking at a property that isn't going to come with loads and loads of amenities, then you could be looking closer to the 2.5 to 3 range. But again, it depends on number of bedrooms, and yeah, what you're getting with the apartment and where it is. How close is it to a station or to transport links? How in a city really is it in London? Obviously within the M25 is what I'm talking about. Equally, I find that places that are harder to get to tend to have better rates. But do I want to live somewhere that's hard to get to? No, I do not. So yeah. Another question is, how do you manage paying your bills or your other finances? Now, this one is really, really important. Before I moved out, I looked at how much my rent was going to be, and then I did a financial projection of what my bills were going to cost. Now, this is something I generally cannot control. I cannot control how much Eon decide, whatever energy provider you have, or how much your water bill is going to be, or how much your electricity is going to be, and whether or not your property is going to be electric or gas. Like, these are all things you're not in control over. However, you can look at the websites for your bill providers or your prospective bill providers, and when you are viewing, you can also ask the leasing associates about these things, so who the energy provider is for the building. And if they know, you can then look at the area. If you have the postcode, you may be able to look at what council tax might be, and that's how you can find out sort of a range of what your bills will be. And usually your leasing associate will have that kind of information to hand, so they can give you kind of a rough estimate of what your bills per month are likely to be. That is how I made my yearly budget. So I did put through a budget month by month on my iPad that I made myself. I made the budget myself, just based on my income and then what my outgoings are, and then I listed all of my outgoings outside of my living. So things like Netflix. I know Netflix is like so minor, but I'm talking about the collection, you know, all encompassing every subscription that I have, including TV. Also TV license, that's another bill that you're gonna have to pay if you watch TV or if you stream. But yeah, these are all the little things that I looked at ahead of time, so I kind of already knew how much money I'd be losing a month, because I do look at it as losing money. Like, spending money is losing money, unfortunately. If it's not being invested, you're losing it, period. That is how I figured out what my finances were going to be, and I guess that is also how I planned for it financially. I knew how much money I'd be losing at any given time. Wow, that sounds so sad. But yeah, outside of leisure, it's important to know this is what this is going to cost me. So in saying that, that is how I manage paying my bills. At any given time, I know how much my bills are going to cost, and so I arranged for almost all of my bills to be taken by direct debit or standing order right after my payday, so that, yeah, that portion of my income I never really see or feel. I mean, you always feel it because you know that you could have had it but you don't have it because you got to pay your rent, but I don't see it, so it's not included in the rest of my money that I spend leisurely. Now, if you can, I would change all of your direct debits. If you have any others that are coming out to say the 14th of the month, make it the end. Some companies don't allow you to change this, which is, I find, a bit ridiculous, but my way around that is I cancelled my subscriptions and then resubscribed on the day that I wanted to pay, because if you won't let me change the date, then I'm just not subscribed anymore. How about that? One question that I really love, and I do think it's related to finances, is what's your favorite or go-to meals since moving out, or meals that you find cost effective, and how do you grocery shop? So I think that this should be like a video on its own, which is why I love the question so much. But I think that when you move out, you realize that there are certain ways that you should eat, there are certain ways you want to eat, and there are certain ways you can eat. Now you can decide that all three of those things are the same and you will do all three of them and you don't care, or you can decide that actually, even with shopping or with eating, I have to look at being cost effective. You may find that the supermarket that your family were using isn't budget friendly for you as an individual, or it may not be close to you as an individual, so you have to decide on where you're going to shop. So the first thing I would say you should do when you move is explore the area and find out where your grocery shops are. Which ones do you have, what's closest to you, and what is within your budget or your price range, and then decide where you're going to shop. You do not have to shop at one supermarket. So I don't shop at one single supermarket. I choose based on what it is that I'm looking for. For example, I will not buy fruit at Aldi because I don't like the fruit at Aldi. Maybe apples, but I'm not buying grapes at Aldi. I'll buy my grapes at Tesco or Sainsbury's or M&S or Waitrose if I ever find myself at M&S or Waitrose. But again, I'm not doing my entire food shop somewhere that's far from where I am, if you know what I mean. So yeah, there are some things I won't compromise on. I'm not going to stop eating New York bagels because I have rent to pay, because New York bagels are the best bagels in the market. So have your non-negotiables and then have your negotiables. That's the best way to shop cost efficiently. In terms of meals that I make, it depends whether I'm meal prepping or if I'm going with the flow. So in my flat, I always have pasta and I always have rice, so I always have the option to make a meal from those things. I also always have tomatoes, whether that's tin tomatoes or fresh tomatoes, so that I can make stew or sauce. I try to have cheese as much as I can. So I'm gonna always be able to make a cheeky stew, do you know what I mean? So something that I do tend to cook a lot is corned beef stew, because I find it filling and I can have it with a bunch of different foods. I love a corned beef stew if I'm trying to make a quick meal. I find stew really easy to make, so you can have that with rice, you can have it with pasta, you can have it with yam, you can have it with plantain, so you can choose. I like to make things that I can eat with a range of different foods, because that just makes it easier when it comes down to cooking and eating. So I don't know if I would call corned beef stew cost effective, because corned beef is like £3 to £5 right now, so I don't know. It used to be a lot cheaper, but yeah, it lasts. So you can make a good stew with just one tin of corned beef. So think about it and let me know if you're looking to have like meat in your meals. That's a good way to make like a meal prep kind of thing. So yeah, moving on to tips. So the first like tip related question is tips on picking a good person to live with / thoughts on deciding who to live with. So if you don't know, I live with my cousin. We're close in age and she's female, so in that way we're similar, like we fit the same kind of spec. Tips on picking someone to live with. I think if you don't want to live alone, then you should look firstly at your closer circle. And I say closer because they don't have to be your best friend, but they do have to be someone that you can see yourself spending a lot of time with, if you are someone who's going to spend a lot of time in your apartment or in your home. I spend a decent amount to a lot of time at home now, but that was generally not my everyday character before I moved out of my parents' house. Like when I was at my parents' house, I wasn't at home a lot, but now that I live here, I am at home a lot because I feel at home, if you get what I mean. I have the option to be at home now. I have the space, I'm free in that way, so like I can be at home, but also I'm prepared to like not always be here. What you don't want to do is live with somebody who you know you can't spend excess time with, so you have to be really careful about how you choose your prospective flatmate. That's if you care who your flatmate is. If you just want to move and you are open to a flat share, which I was very much closed to because I could not do it. I can't live with a stranger because I like to be really comfortable at home, and I don't want to have to get comfortable with the person that I'm living with. I just feel like home should feel very homely, and I think it's a bit too stark a difference to move from living with family to then like living with a complete, total, utter stranger. And also people's habits and hygiene are very strange. So yeah, that is a reason why I could never flat share. And I did not flat share or house share or whatever you want to call it with a random, like a flatmate that I don't know. It's just not for me. I appreciate that other people do it and have to do it if you're international and you're not from the UK and you've moved here from somewhere else, or if you're not from London and you're moving to London, or if you just don't have friends or close family or anybody who's around that you can live with. It makes perfect sense. There are definitely reasons for it, but I was not in that position. So that's how and why I ended up living with my cousin. She was moving to London for work, and yeah, it just worked out that way. I prefer to live with one person over living with multiple people. I never saw myself living with more than one person, so yeah. But also I was open to living by myself. Financially, the burden is shared, so it's nice living with another person. But at the same time, I wasn't ever opposed to the idea of living alone if I needed to. Another question, which I think is an amazing question, is tips on picking somewhere safe as a Black woman. So I know that this is a concern of all women, but particularly Black women. I think that it is difficult to determine where is safe for you. I'd be really like careful about like researching the areas that you move to and making sure that you're not too far from any of what you would deem as your emergency contacts and stuff like that. You don't want to be too hard to get to when you're thinking about your safety. So that's one tip I'd say, like, don't go too far. I know it sounds mad, or just like, why should you like have to stay local? You don't have to stay local, but if you can help it and if you want to, I would err on the side of going somewhere that is not so far from where you already live that you couldn't get to anybody that you needed to get to. If you live in London, like that doesn't apply to different areas of London, if we're being realistic. Some parts of London are further from others. For example, if you are from Croydon and you move to Edmonton, that's going to be far from what you know, but you know London, you know your way around, and for the most part, like, you'd be fine. So within London, go wild, like go crazy, move around. I don't like walk around with that idea that I'm being stalked, but also I'm not closed to the thought that, you know, people are weird. People are weird and they always want the fine ones first. So let me back my tasty ass up. I bet elementary reference, if you know, you know. And the last tip is on balancing enjoyment versus responsibilities. I think the easiest way to balance your enjoyment versus your responsibilities is to get your responsibilities out of the way first. First and foremost, get your responsibilities out of the way. The first of the month comes, by then you should have paid all of your rent and all of your bills. It's out the way, it's gone, it's done, it's out of your account. Then you can focus on all the other things that you want to do. So something that I think works well is planning your enjoyment. I know that sounds crazy, but if you plan your enjoyment, you can also leave room for spontaneity, which I do. So I'll put that in my little calendar and I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to see this. If I know there's a recess coming up and I want to go, I'll have that in my plans. That's where I'm going. I'm going to enjoy that. I'll plan for that. If I'm going to go on holiday at any given point, it's after I've already gotten my responsibilities out of the way. then I'm like, okay, cool, these are the other things that I want to do. So there's needs and wants, and you have to categorize the two, because whether you want to pay it or not, you're gonna need to pay your rent. And that's just the way I see it. So once your needs are out of the way, then you can decide on the things that you want to do. Planning in advance, that works really well. So if you know you want to go on holiday in the summer, but it's February, start planning your summer holiday. What can you do to plan towards your summer holiday now? You can look at potential outfits you want to wear, so you can do your shopping gently, like bit by bit, rather than doing it all at once. You know, gentle shopping and do things bit by bit. You can book tickets in advance so that they're cheaper or more cost efficient. Your accommodation in advance, little things like that. Those are things you can do to like balance your enjoyment versus your responsibilities. You need to pay your rent. You want to go on holiday. Paying your rent comes first. So do that and then do the rest. So now that the tips are out the way, I have reflections. One of the questions I was asked was, why did you choose an apartment rather than a house? This goes back to the safety question. I could live in a house, but, well, it's two things. One, style. I think that the way I like a home to be styled right now at my age and at my life stage is a lot more suited or better suited to an apartment over a house. So yeah, that's one reason why. Yeah, that's the main reason why actually stylistically an apartment just fits me better. Secondly, amenities. I like to have other things outside of just my flat that I can have if the opportunity is there. So like a gym, for example, or somewhere that's like local, or having a lounge or a reception, or things I can do in a foyer, having a bit of a community when I move. I think moving is a really good opportunity to meet people, and living in a house, you will meet literally your next door neighbours, and like that's about it, because people are scary and I don't particularly want to be speaking to people on the streets. But if you choose an apartment, particularly like a complex, there are so many people you can meet, literally just in the gym, in a fitness class. I don't know, like when your neighbours come together and have like little events, like that kind of thing. So yeah, for me it's about community, style, and finally safety. I like places where there's a security guard, and I don't know many houses that you can rent for a reasonable rate where you're gonna have a security guard, or like a concierge or something along those lines. I just feel safer that way. So yeah, those are my three things. Style, community, safety. What do you miss about living at home? Good question. I miss the fact that when I was living at home, I wasn't like fully responsible for myself, which sounds crazy, but I mean literally like in the smallest way, like what I'm gonna eat for dinner. For the most part, I did cook my own dinner anyway, but the option, the potential that maybe going home today, I just might not have to cook because my mum probably cooked something. Even if it's not like my first preference of what I want to eat, there is something available for me there. I miss that about living at home. I of course miss like my siblings. I miss being around my siblings consistently. I miss that. Like I miss being able to see them and annoy them ad hoc. Like I miss being able to just like jump on my brother's head, like literally, or like poke my sister or give her a hug because she's like, she gets uncomfortable about hugs. Like I just miss that. Naturally I miss my parents. Sometimes just like the silly nags that they would say. So like, you know how parents have like catchphrases? Like I miss my parents' catchphrases. Yeah. So I miss that about living at home. What are the benefits of moving out? So like pros and cons. I would say pros of moving out, independence. I think it's really, really important to have your independence, and you learn and you build and you grow a lot when you're by yourself. Like I think being by yourself is a great opportunity for growth, and it's difficult to grow when you're in your comfort zone. So living outside of your home will automatically take you out of your comfort zone, especially doing it at this stage where you know it's not uni, so you're not going back. You will grow because you will be forced to, but I like it. Another pro is I really like change, so it's nice for me to get outside of my environment again. Nobody eats my food. That's a pro, a big pro. If any of you have a brother, you'll know that people be eating your food. Now that I do not live at home, there's no brother to eat my food, which is nice. Like, what's mine is mine. So again, I get to be a little bit selfish with my things, which is it's nice. I won't lie to you, that is nice. You're not on anyone else's timing, so for the most part your time is respected. I like that about not living at home. Like, you can't just expect me to drop things. Like, nobody's talking in the background if I need to be on a meeting, because they are entitled to speak in the background because it's their yard when you live in your mom's house. Like, as much as we can be like, oh my gosh, like, how can my mum not understand I'm on a Zoom call? That's her house. She can actually speak as loudly as she wants. She's well within her rights. So yeah, so those are some pros. Cons, you pay for everything. You literally pay for everything. So there's no, oh dad, can we have pizza tonight because it's Friday, or somebody else doing the food shopping, or somebody else keeping the lights on. You have to do that. I think that's a con. I would say that's a drawback, because that is something that you have the luxury to experience, or the privilege, if that's your kind of living experience at home. Somebody else bears most of the financial burden. If you do live at home and you bear most of the financial burden, then moving out isn't going to be crazy different to you. But if you live at home and you have like a larger family and somebody else bears the financial burden for some things, or even if you split it, all of it falls on you when you move out, you and your flatmate, or you and just yourself if you live alone. So that can be difficult to deal with, because yeah, you're just minding your business and now cash loss. The next question is, why did you move out? I moved out because I needed physical space to work, to grow, to live, and also because just like I'm growing up kind of thing. So yeah, that's the main thing. I needed space, and so I moved out. I was in a position to, so it just made sense. But yeah, me moving out afforded me the opportunity to be able to get the space that I needed to do all the things I need to do, including work. So this kind of work is easier for me having moved out than it would have been at home, because I'm very much, again, on my own timing. So yeah, that's why I moved out. Do you ever feel lonely having moved out or spending time by yourself? Great question. The answer is no. I don't ever, lonely is not a word that I would use to describe like how I feel being by myself. I don't ever feel like lonely. If I do feel lonely, it's not in any way related to not living in my parents' house, because I feel like you can still live lonely even while you live like at home with your family. But I don't feel lonely because I don't live there, no. I have the option to see people if I want to. So yeah, and also I don't live alone, like I said before, so I'm not necessarily by myself. There's still another person living here. So yeah, I don't feel lonely, no. Would you recommend every girl has an experience of living alone before marriage? Why or why not? This question is interesting because the answer is yes for me, but I can also see, I don't think you have to have this experience. Would I recommend it? Yes, but I'd recommend every adult like live by themselves before living with their partner if they have the opportunity. But everything is different for everyone, and depending on when you do it, like as in the marriage thing or living with your partner thing, will determine how that works for you. I think living alone is hard, so if you're looking to challenge yourself or grow, I think it's one of the things that will do that to you and for you. But at the same time, it's not imperative that you live by yourself before you live with another person, your partner, because like a lot of the time, depending on what your family structure is, you know how to live with other people. So I don't think you need to have moved out to know how to live with a partner, but I do think it can show you what you are like outside of your family home in terms of how you like your space, which is easier to communicate than going into a situation where you're living with somebody else. So for example, for me, where I'm unmarried, when I do marry, I feel like I already semi-know how I like to live as me, and you will have to adjust to what your partner's needs are anyway. So it's kind of weird to just be like, yeah, you'll be ready. You won't. you're always going to have to adjust to how they live, but at the very least you'll have a greater idea on what things you like because you just like them, in terms of the way you live as compared with how you live due to your family, if you know what I mean. I hope that made sense, but yeah, if you can do it, but at the same time it's not by force. The final question in this little reflection section, and probably like the last question of all, is not really a question, but it's reflections on living in your own place for the past year or for the first year. How do I feel? How's it been, etc. I have found living outside of my parents' house to be a transformative experience. I've really enjoyed it, I can't lie. Like, I've really enjoyed it. People ask me like, do you want to go home? No. Not because I don't love them, but because like at a certain stage of life it's just needless. Moving back home right now as I am doesn't make sense, nor does it like really appeal to me particularly. I think that this is where I needed to be at this stage of my life, so I'm just glad to be living in my purpose, really. I don't think me moving out was a coincidence. I think it was supposed to happen, when and how it happened. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I like who I have been gradually becoming as well as a young woman, adulting, looking after myself, fending for myself, supporting myself. I've learned a lot about who I am. I've learned a lot about my resilience. I've learned a lot about my money management. I've learned a lot about the steps that I take with regards to my safety. Like, I've learned a lot about what my own routines are, and I think that those experiences are invaluable. Like, I wouldn't have got those experiences living in my parents' house, and I did move out for a portion of my university experience as well, so it's not like, oh, I've never lived outside of the house prior to my first time moving out. But it is not the same as university. Uni is like a taster. Uni is like an open day for living alone as an adult, like outside of the studying, because you're not studying, you're working. So you're waking up and you're motivating yourself every day to do what you need to do to survive, and that is an experience that you are unlikely to be able to get living at home if you are not the sole or main contributor to the overall running of your family household. So yeah, I've enjoyed it, I love it, I will continue to do it. I do not plan being emphasis on plan, like anything can happen, but I don't currently plan on moving back to my parents' house. So yeah, no, I love it. There was another question, and it was about any purchases that I regret. Do I have any purchases I regret? I have both times moved into furnished properties, so I haven't had to make huge purchases for my flat, but I will think about that question, and I think I will answer it in another video because I do not have an answer for that right now. I don't know if there's anything that immediately springs to mind that I regret that I purchased for my home. I stuck to pretty like classic things like furnishings, so my chest of drawers, my like desk. Like I didn't buy anything that was particularly trendy. I think if you do make trendy purchases, those are purchases that you'd regret. There was a mirror that I wanted. My god, I'm so glad I didn't get it because I would regret that right now. That's really it. So I hope you've enjoyed learning all about my experience since I moved out of my mama house. Since I've been an independent girl. I hope you have enjoyed hearing all about it. Please do not hesitate to drop any further questions that you have in the comment section. If you made it this far, hit me with one of these in the comments. We want a little heart so I know that you're here, or you can hit me with a little house emoji so I know that you stuck with me to the end. Those of you who got this far, as always, you're my OGs, you're my riders, you're my babies. I love you the most. Thank you to all of you who sent your questions in, especially the girls on TikTok live with me, because you basically wrote this list. But yeah, any more questions, feel free to drop them down below and I will hopefully be able to answer them for you. And yeah, feel free to drop them in the vlogs comments as well so that I can answer them ad hoc. If you think of something in a week's time and I've dropped a weekly vlog, lordy, ask it in the comments of the weekly vlog. Don't hesitate. But thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next one. Bye.